What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another press conference reaction, this time for the FA Cup, as Erik ten Hag has been talking to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of Monday. Not Saturday, not Sunday, but Monday's trip to the DW Stadium to face off against League One's Wigan Athletic in the FA Cup third round. And actually, a bit surprising because obviously usually the press conferences are on a Friday, and today it's a bit different. It was on Thursday in the afternoon. So we've got a Thursday afternoon press conference reaction for you. Erik ten Hag talking about a variety of topics, talking about confirming that Manchester United indeed have triggered the extension, the 12-month extension clauses of the contracts of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Victor Lindelof and Hannibal, but also confirmed that they haven't triggered the extension for Raphael Varane and Anthony Martial, saying that talks are ongoing with both player. And whilst he didn't say why, it's because of one thing, money. It's because of money. So we spoke about that. Also spoke about Jaden Sancho. Not giving too much away, as you would expect, regarding Jaden Sancho and a potential loan move to Borussia Dortmund, saying can't really comment on that at the time. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth, as seemingly we're just sort of waiting for like a Fabrizio Romano, here we go. By all accounts, everything's basically done and basically in place. Not for a lot of money, really. We kind of went over it this morning, but a bit of an update on that as well. He also spoke about Andre Onana. Onana is going to be available for Monday's game against Wigan, but another question is he going to somehow be available for the game against Spurs, even though Cameroon begin their AFCON campaign just 24 hours later? What's going on with that? Ten Hag spoke about that a little bit, and also he spoke about some meetings with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir Dave Brailsford, and INEOS today at Old Trafford. By all accounts, the meetings that Ratcliffe has at Carrington and Old Trafford continued today, included an all-staff meeting and also a several hours-long meeting with the Manchester United manager himself, and Erik ten Hag has commented on that. So there's plenty to get into in this press conference reaction. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Whilst you are all here, I can see the Manchecutioner. Oh yes, the Manchecutioner is in the chat, and he is confirming, I believe, let me just check if... Yep, I can also confirm the time is now for the press conference reaction, not for the match. The time is now for the match on Monday. It kicks off at 8:15, so we'll be live at 7:45. Flex, KG, and myself. Yes, a special Trinity match view to guide you through. I mean, it's third round, threes, Trinity, the UV Trinity. It might as well. Right? So that's the time for that one. You'll be able to see all the timings for everything in the sidebar, as always, as well. Big up Joe Blackman's in the chat, says, hi everyone, if you're here waiting, let's show some love to the channel and drop a like whilst we wait. You're waiting no longer, but that doesn't mean you can't click the like button. So big up Joe Blackman as well, long-time supporter and moderator here on the channel too. Simon's in the chat, says, big up Owen and everyone. It's Sting, says, hello Owen, how are you? I'm feeling good today. I'm still in that territory where I'm not really sure what day it is and what year it is at the moment. I keep thinking everything's 2023, and I'm not sort of in that mode where you're back to knowing actually what day everything is. And I felt like I just got back to being comfortable that it was Thursday and everything was going on. Then next thing you know, it's a press conference. I was like, that's usually for Friday. Is it Friday? What's going on at the moment? So I'm good, but I hope you're all doing well as well. Let's get into the press conference and the questions, the answers. Erik ten Hag, first question came, I don't know who it came from actually, I think it was Simon Stone, and was asking about Andre Onana, because of course there's been the story that Onana and his relationship with his national team is incredibly complicated anyway. Of course, infamously, he left the World Cup back in 2022 in Qatar and retired, and then he came out of retirement last year and looks like he was going to be playing at AFCON, but now it's a situation where it's like he is going to be playing at AFCON, but he's still going to be playing for United. It's very strange, to say the least. And most people had assumed we signed Bayern Deer to be a backup goalkeeper with the mindset that Onana wasn't going to be available in January. Therefore, we were going to utilize the backup goalkeeper. I mean, that's what it's for, right? That's what it's for. Yes, no? So, very strange one. And then David Ornstein had reported that essentially a compromise was met between United and the Cameroon Football Federation, which was that Onana was going to play against Spurs on the 14th, and then somehow, some way, he was going to be available to play for Cameroon on the 15th, thousands of miles away, 24 hours later. A very strange situation. So Ten Hag was asked about this, and Ten Hag said, quote, "We're talking with the Cameroon Confederation about Onana. It was an issue during the talks of Andre when he came in here. It's constructive." I think that's the interesting part of that. Now, he did also say he's going to be here for the game against Wigan, so Onana's going to start at the DW on Monday. But it's really the sort of second part of the sentence which I find to be quite interesting from Ten Hag there, which he's saying that it was an issue during the talks with Andre when he came in here. So he's been asked about this a couple of times, Ten Hag, and he's been asked that when you were in discussions to sign Andre Onana in the summer, there's no way that wasn't brought up. There's no way that wasn't discussed. There's no way that that issue wasn't broached. And previously, Ten Hag has said, yep, we're aware of the situation. We knew the situation when we were talking to Andre Onana. We're aware of it. It's not a problem. More sort of insinuating that they knew that Onana was going to go back to play for his country. So they were aware of that. Because that was one of my questions before was, did United know about that he was going to go back? If they'd signed a player assuming he was retired from international football, only for him to make a U-turn and get out of retirement and then be missing in January, you'd be pretty annoyed. You'd be pretty upset about that, right? Surely that would be the case. Well, he had said previously that they knew about it and they were aware of it. But it's interesting here that Ten Hag would reference that it was an issue. It was an issue during the talks when Andre came in here. So he's not giving too much away, as is always the case with Ten Hag. But certainly, maybe it was a situation. And again, this is me speculating here, and I don't know this to be completely accurate or the fact or anything like that. So this is just me speculating. Maybe it was a situation where it was like, okay, when they're in chats. So it says, the last we heard, you were retired from international football, right? So you're going to be available in January when AFCON's coming around. Well, I'm thinking about I might play in it. Is there any way around that? How desperately do you want to play in it? Which I've always found this discussion regarding AFCON so strange and bizarre, to be honest with you, because I remember the last AFCON tournament, and I thought it was disrespectful to ask players like, oh, are you going to go to the tournament and represent your country, or are you going to stay in the Premier League and play? I thought, how rude. Like, how disrespectful. Of course you're going to go and represent your country if you're selected, of course. Because I remember they were sort of saying it about like Mane and Salah. You going to go, yeah? Well, yeah. I've been picked by my country. Unless you're retired, then yeah, I'm going to go. The Onana one's a different situation because he's had a fractious relationship, certainly with his country in terms of the national team. So either way, Ten Hag doesn't necessarily confirm that he's going to be available for Spurs. He's confirmed that he's going to be available for the game against Wigan. Regarding Spurs, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Big up to Jord, by the way. Get this up right here. Big up to Jord, who's the latest member of the UV Members Club. Welcome to you. Jord gets their badges, their emojis, and their exclusive members-only content. Also, the ability to call in to the full-time view after the game on Monday. It's going to be a late one. Going to be a late full-time view, but I'll be there. I'll be live, and you'll be able to call in and have your say if indeed you are a member. So big up to you. You can see right there, George using his new emoji. He's using the Warsal emoji. It's a favourite. I mean, those members that are in the chat at the moment, let me know which is your favourite emoji. We're actually at capacity. Some people say, he doesn't have the capacity. We genuinely don't have the capacity to add any more emojis as of right now. The emoji limit gets increased the more members that are added. So if you want more emojis, more members, because there are so many more ideas we've got. We've got the, which was what? Oh, the OWEN Siren. Yeah, so the OWEN Siren was when we want added in. There's a Good Vibes John one actually in there as well. I'm a fan of that one, the new one. There's so many KG ones and Marcel ones. So yes, if you don't have, if you're not a member, you can get that as well. For instance, Joe Blackman, it's got loads of them up there. You've got the Warsals, you've got the Green KG, you've got the Crackhead, you've got the Hopium as well. So there's plenty. There's plenty if you haven't already. Man1DJ says, do you have that kind of emoji? I don't. We don't. I think that might be for you, but we don't have that for one for us. Maybe he doesn't feel represented. He wants to have that emoji in there, maybe. I don't know. Moving on, let's talk about the contracts, the extensions of the contracts. Because the question was put to Erik ten Hag about Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It's been reported that his contract has been extended, or they've triggered the option to extend the contract for a similar year. In addition to that, Victor Lindelof, Hannibal, they're in similar situations, so what's going on with that? Anthony Martial, Raphael Varane, which contracts have been extended, which haven't? And Erik ten Hag said the following. We can get up on the screen here. He said, we are talking with Raphael Varane and Anthony Martial, and we triggered the options on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Victor Lindelof, and Hannibal Mejbri. Now, he was also asked about why that was the case. Why did you trigger certain options and why did you not trigger the other options? And Ten Hag said it was an internal discussion between the club and the player. Obviously, there's a pretty common denominator when it comes to players that have been sort of the trigger has been, or the option has been exercised, and the option that hasn't with certain players, it's money. It's money. Money is the real reason. You've got Victor Lindelof. He's on 120k a week. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's, I think, on like 90 or something like that. I don't think it even breaks 100. Hannibal's on like 5 or something ridiculous. Whereas in comparison, Raphael Varane, 340k a week. Anthony Martial, 250k a week. Obviously, Erik ten Hag's not going to come out in the media and just go, they're on too much money and they're not worth it. And Man United are broke and we're struggling when it comes to FFP. They're not going to say that. The easier thing just to say is, well, it's between the player, it's between the club. But it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean when it comes to the people that haven't had their options triggered that they're not going to stick around long term at Manchester United. By all accounts, United do want to keep Varane, or are open to keeping him. They just want to negotiate what they believe to be better terms, fairer terms, more accurate terms when it comes to his availability and reliability, which would most likely be a pay cut, or certainly a contract that maybe can get closer to like 340. I still think it should come down. Like, let's say it was 250 or 300. It gets, basically the point being, it's going to have to be incentivized. I think much more incentivized and better terms in terms of a basic salary wage. Martial, by all accounts, the reason they haven't triggered it is because he's off. They're still, I think, looking to see if anyone would be interested in January on picking him up for basically nothing. I mean, when you've got 6 months left on your contract, hey, it's not going to be a lot of money that you're getting for that player. But Anthony Martial, I think it's safe to say this is going to be his last season at Manchester United, isn't it? And it's just a case of whether he goes in January for next to nothing or if he goes in the summer for nothing. I don't see him getting picked up in January, to be honest with you, because I think he'll probably look at his contract, 250k a week, and say, I'm not getting that anywhere else. Anthony Martial, unless he goes to Saudi in the summer, which I suppose he could. That's a possibility. But anywhere in Europe, he's not getting 250k a week, and I think likely he'll just sit out his contract and then leave on a free. And that's why Manchester United haven't triggered that extension, because in addition to that, they tried. He was on a year left on his contract this past summer on 250k, and nobody was nibbling on that bait. Nobody was putting offers in. We weren't hearing massive rumours about Martial going anywhere or anything like that, were we? So they'd be just dumb to trigger that extension, because I do see people that will say, for like Martial or even with Raphael Varane, when they go, just trigger it and then get a good fee for the player. That's different. That's a valid argument for like a Victor Lindelof. That's a valid argument for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because they're on a lowish wage. I mean, still a lot of money, but they're still on a lowish wage. Lindelof 120, Aaron Wan-Bissaka 90. So you can still get a good transfer fee for those players. If you're on that contract of like 250, 340, you're just not going to get a good transfer fee. You're going to get nothing. I mean, we saw the issues we had selling Harry Maguire in the summer. Why? Because his wages are just too big. His wages are just too high. And then United were caught in a situation of, well, we'll have to pay you off if you want to go. I mean, look at Jaden Sancho at the moment with this whole Dortmund loan deal. They're paying us is like 2.6 million quid. That's their load all in, because we couldn't get rid of Jaden Sancho any other way in January, because nobody will touch a wage that can rise up to 350 grand a week. It's just not going to happen at all. So those players that are on those higher wage, it just makes sense not to trigger them. And in the case of Varane, to try and negotiate, and in the case of Martial, just be like, we'll try and get rid of him in January. If not, it's going to be the summer. That's just how it's going to be, realistically. So Yes, that's the latest when it comes to those contracts as well. We've got a gifted membership by Prod by Palmeiras. Big up to you as gifted one UV membership. So that means we've got 2 members that have joined so far. And George Smith is the latest member of the UV Members Club from that gifted membership by Prod by Palmeiras. So big up to you and welcome to you, George, as well. Gifted memberships are fun, aren't they? I like when the gifted memberships come out and then you see them go boom, 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 boom. They are randomly assigned, by the way. I know sometimes like the gifted subs come out and people are like, oh, why didn't I get the gifted sub or anything like that? It's randomized or anything like that. So yeah, that's why. But congratulations to you, George, for getting that too. What else are people saying here in the chat at the moment? What else are we saying? Standard protocol format says Erik ten Hag should be on a pay-as-you-win contract. Well, it's an interesting one of Erik ten Hag's contract. I think the discussion about his contract, I think, is going to be a much bigger talking point in the next couple of months because people forget Ten Hag's got, what is it, like 18 months, I think, left on his contract or something like that. It's not a huge amount of time. And when it comes to his future, we spoke about this quite a lot this morning in the morning show, the Transfer View show, that with certain things that he has in his contract, the veto power over transfers and INEOS coming in, we're going to talk about how he reacted to that meeting in just a second. It's going to be really interesting to see about his future and particularly his contract. And if he were to sign a new one, would it be an altered contract, a changed contract with certain terms be tweaked or changed? Or will INEOS look at that contract and go, no, can't have that? And will results dictate it too? There's a lot going on when it comes to all that in Manchester United, certainly. We got over 400 people watching, nearly 450, less than 100 likes. If you haven't already, be sure to click the like button and be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. Joe Blackman says there is a story saying that United are in discussions with Martial to extend his contract on reduced terms. Now, let's have a look at this because I remember before, gosh, when was this press conference? There was a press conference. So there we go. It's the same as before. It's the same before. This is where we get into, I think, sort of, again, media literacy, or we get into people putting 2 and 2 together and getting 500 or getting, in this case, 250k. When Erik ten Hag says we are talking with Rafa Varane and Anthony Martial, I mean let's get the quote back up on the screen again. You know, we are talking with Rafa Varane and Anthony Martial and triggered the options on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Victor Lindelof and Hannibal Mejbri. So people will read that and be like, what? They want to keep Anthony Martial? What is going on? Why are they keeping Martial? Why would they be even interested in keeping Martial? Martial's going. It's the nice way. I mean, because we don't know what they're talking to him about. The discussions might be, we're not extending your contract, mate. Am I getting offered a new one? No. They're having talks with Rafael Varane over a new contract. But yeah, Anthony Martial is, I think he's done at Manchester United. In fact, Samuel Luckers has tweeted, Ten Hag said Manchester United are talking with Rafa Varane and Anthony Martial, whose contracts haven't been extended. Club maintain Martial is due to be released if he's not sold this month, which essentially says we're either selling him or he's going for free on the summer. So I think it's one of those situations where people read the quote and get really alarmed by it. It happened a couple of months ago when they were talking about contracts and they said, I think it was a version of this question, which was all of these players have options on their contracts, and including that was Martial. What's the latest with that? And Ten Hag said we're in talks with all of them. And people looked at that and went, oh my God, they're going to re-sign all of them long term and give them new terms. And it's like, that's not really what they meant by that. It's not really what they said by that. So that's why sometimes it's important to watch the press conference as well, as opposed to just read the quotes. Because sometimes, the aggregators do a fantastic job, but when you see just words on paper or words on the screen, sometimes they can be a bit different as opposed to hearing them in the proper context as well. Next question was about Jaden Sancho. Of course, as I mentioned earlier on, we're just really waiting for confirmation on the Sancho loan. It's going to happen. They hope that he's going to be in Marbella tomorrow. Wouldn't that be lovely? But yes, he's going to be part of the Dortmund training camp fairly soon. There's a verbal agreement between the club, Dortmund, and the player. Just the finer details are just being fixed and figured out at this point. So Erik ten Hag was asked what's happening with Jaden Sancho. And Ten Hag said the following. We can get that up right now. It says, I can't say anything about that. We have to wait and see how things are going. When we have news, we will tell you. Now, when he was asked about the fact that it's a loan, does that imply that Sancho is going to have still a future at the club, or is it just that Dortmund can afford the loan? Once again, Ten Hag said, I can't say anything. There is no news. We spoke about this in depth this morning, and I know that this is a very polarizing issue, hot topic issue, hot button issue, however you want to describe it. Facts are Jaden Sancho is going to go to Dortmund on loan. Facts are, I think, also that just because it's a loan, I don't think that implies that there's a way back for him at Manchester United, in all honesty. I suppose the way back would be him to apologise to Erik ten Hag, but he doesn't want to apologise. So that's why we find ourselves in the situation that it is right there. We've spoke about it extensively over and over again. I've shared my opinion on it. My opinion is that even if Erik ten Hag got sacked tomorrow, there's no way back for Jaden Sancho. Why is there no way back for Jaden Sancho? Because it's over, because it's done, because that kind of behaviour, whether you believe Sancho was justified or he wasn't justified, it just can't be tolerated, really. That you go out, people have warped Ten Hag's initial quote about Sancho, I think, in their mind, or they think he said something else when he didn't. I think it's a fairly inane comment. Nothing really happened in it. It was just kind of, I pick players based on training, and people have warped that and changed that and just changed it into their head into something that he didn't say. You've seen managers say very similar things about their players at plenty of other clubs this season. It hasn't escalated into this. Is Sancho valid on a couple of points? I'm sure he is. When it comes to Ten Hag having favourites or picking people over him when they're not really justified and do it. We say the same about Antony most weeks. We've said the same about plenty of players. It's a criticism of Ten Hag. But is that justification to go on social media and say you've been scapegoated and implied that there are other factors at play as well? It's not professional. It's not professional, and it's not the way to go about it. And if you want to leave United, then you can do what Raphael Varane had. I mean, clearly there was more than meets the eye, seemingly, with Raphael Varane and Erik ten Hag over the last several months. But he stayed silent, stayed on the bench. When called upon, he played very well. Simple. And if he ends up leaving Man United, he ends up leaving Manchester United. He can hold his head high and say that he acted with dignity and professionalism, and that's it. When it comes to Sancho, it created a problem. And the talk about how can he be exiled to train with the youth players? How can you keep him around the first team squad? How crazy would that be if you're doing shape work or tactical work or training every single day, and there's a guy in there that's got, he's not going to play, and he's the highest paid player at the club, and how that he's fallen out with the manager? It's just not going to work, right? How is that going to work? So I think that Sancho is going back to the best place for him, certainly. The manager at Dortmund was the manager that got the best out of him during his time there and really protected him, got his arm around him, and instructed his coaches to kind of ensure that he turned up on time in certain places and paired him with Erling Haaland to try and up his levels of professionalism. So it's the right place for him. And I hope it works out. I really do, because he's a young guy. He's 23, and he's so far off the England squad as well at the moment that all of that needs to be resolved. But he is the latest in a long line of big names that haven't worked out at United for whatever reason, whether it's issues with the coach, not being good enough, succumbing to the pressure, or whatever it may be. It's not worked out for Jaden Sancho, and there isn't any way back. There isn't. Even if it's a new manager, once Sancho's loan finishes, it's done. That situation is done. So Ten Hag said he can't really say too much more about that. How many likes are we currently at the moment here? We are currently at nearly 500 likes. 500 likes, I wish. Nearly 500 watching. 127 likes. Could you imagine 500 likes? So yes, if you haven't already, click the like button and be sure to subscribe as well. Bottom right hand corner. We're on the road to 160k as well. See what else people are saying here in the chat at the moment. What have we got? PJ says Dortmund have done us, same as Juventus. I think certainly, with in terms of selling the player with the known attitude or the known issue, shall we say, of turning up late or behavioural stuff. That's United's fault, really. That's United's fault. It goes back, everything, a lot of the stuff at United goes back to recruitment. A lot of it goes back to that recruitment department of not identifying the right players, not even just in terms of tactics, but in terms of, mentality, in terms of personality and player profile and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's what it goes back to. And I've been seeing more of those clips of... I was seeing those clips of Sir Dave Brailsford on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I've seen the clips. And it was interesting of him saying that he had spoken to Sir Alex Ferguson several times because he was at the velodrome in Manchester, so it wasn't that far for Sir Alex to meet him there, to travel there. And he was saying he picked his brain so often because he spoke about how you can have a group of players or a team together that's incredibly successful over a 4 or 5 year period. They're interconnected. They know each other on every single level. And then the difficulty becomes, how do you maintain that success, phase maybe older players out and bring younger players in? And how do you still strike that perfect balance that you maintain success whilst you're doing those things? And he said he spoke to Sir Alex Ferguson about it, and said that Sir Alex's answer was that a lot of the time, the right time to move a player on is when they were getting a bit more vocal and when they were getting a bit louder, whether it came to pushing back to what the manager was saying or getting a bit more spotlight and fame in the press. And the first two names that come to mind when he says that, isn't it, is Roy Keane and David Beckham. And they're two legends of Manchester United. But I look at that and I see people sort of celebrate that and go, that's good, that's good management, that's clever, that's what Sir Alex is saying. And yet we criticise it when it happens in practice today. So when it happens today and they're talking about, people snapping back to the manager, I mean, this isn't even in a private setting, it's in a public setting on social media, and it stayed up for several days before it was taken down. You as a coach, you're backed into a corner. What else can you do? You have to stand your ground, and that's from a player in Jaden Sancho who hasn't done anything at Manchester United, let alone a Roy Keane or a David Beckham. Like I said, icons. Roy Keane, one of the greatest captains in Manchester United's history, one of the greatest players in Manchester United's history, won Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues, FA Cup, everything you can even think of. And even then, Roy Keane claps back at the club in a public setting in an interview that wasn't aired, then does it in a team meeting in front of the players and Sir Alex Ferguson. Next day, Roy Keane's gone. Just like that. Done. No problem. Done. I remember Rio Ferdinand doing an interview talking about it when they looked around and went, if you just got rid of Roy Keane, then, oh my God. That's what you have to do. Because the moment you lose that credibility in the player's eyes, or the moment the players see you in a different light as he got one over on the manager, you're done. That is it. You are done. And I still find it very, very strange that, that there are fans out there. Look, everyone's got different opinions. I just can't really wrap my head around how people can sort of be backing the player over the manager or the club. Being like, no, get rid of the Ten Hag, bring the player back. I mean, I could maybe understand it if Jaden Sancho had been a superstar for us for 2 years, but that's just not the case. That's just bizarre. So, again, either way, that Sancho is going to be going to Dortmund. We're just sort of waiting on a here we go right now. Next question was about these meetings with INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe today. As I mentioned, INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir Dave Brailsford, they've been at Old Trafford and Carrington over the last couple of days. We know that several meetings have been taking place with staff members, including Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag was asked about the meetings in question, how they went. Ten Hag had the following to say about them. He said it was very positive. We had a long meeting, many hours. We sit together on many issues. We are on the same page. It was very positive, I think, on both sides. It was a very constructive meeting. They have good ideas. Now, what was quite interesting actually about that was also he was asked in a sort of a follow-up question, because there was a couple of questions about this. He was asked, so how much do you expect to change once they take over football operations? And Ten Hag said, well, that's going to happen very shortly, but we'll have to let it settle down. They're just coming in and introducing themselves, so we'll see what they can get integrated quickly, but after one day, you can't really tell about that. And this is where the media are nasty. This is where the media are very, very nasty. So the question is, how much do you expect to change when they take over? And Ten Hag said, well, let's wait and see. It's day one. This is my first meeting with them, an in-depth meeting, so you can't really tell. And then the next question is, so you've still got a lot to learn about their ideas, do you? And Ten Hag was like, well, no. They've given me a few ideas. We've had some debates about approach and strategies, and we'll come together. And it's like, well, I mean, day one. Imagine that after one day. How long have you spoken to him? A couple of hours. Yeah, it was good. It was a good meeting, good constructive meeting. Some really good ideas, and I'm looking forward to it. So do you expect a lot to change then? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's been one day, so it's difficult to say. So you saying you don't know about their meeting? All right. No, I don't. It's day one. The thing hasn't even been ratified yet. It's just meetings at the moment. Because then what they want with that, what they want is the answer of Ten Hag to go and, so you still got a lot to learn about their ideas. Yeah, I've still got a lot to learn. You can see the headline. You can see their thought bubble going up like that. The headline, Ten Hag has a lot to learn about INEOS, or Ten Hag has different ideas about Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Ten Hag and Jim Ratcliffe on different pages. The book's completely different, ripped in half, recycled, all that kind of stuff. You go, come on. Good Lord, let's just settle down when it comes to all that. That's when we just go, come on, let's not try and trip me up with anything like that. Very, very, very strange. So he says the meetings are good, as he would say, and we spoke about before. My biggest thing when it comes to INEOS is they do it step by step and they do the right stuff. And that is do it brick by brick. So we know that Jean-Claude Blanc's going to be the next CEO. Get that confirmed first, then get the sporting director in, then get the head of the recruitment in. Then those people, including Sir Dave Brailsford and Jim Ratcliffe, come together and they say, right, Erik Ten Hag, is he the guy that we want? Let's have some meetings with Ten Hag. Let's see if we're aligned on certain visions. If we're not, let's see if we can get on the same page. Let's look at the results this season as well. And let's see what everybody's thinking. Is everyone aligned? Is everyone on the right page? If they're not, they might go in a different direction. They might go with a different coach. And I'm not opposed to that. As I've said before, I'm not opposed at the end of the season, and I think it should be at the end of the season, if they decide to go in a different direction, as long as everyone's on the same page, and also the replacement is an adequate replacement, not Graham Potter, because that's not an adequate replacement at Manchester United. I'm not saying he should be just completely defined by his failure at Chelsea, which, make no mistake, it was an unmitigated failure. But even before that, I would have said, I don't know about him going to Manchester United. That's a big jump. And that, I don't think sometimes people understand enough. Just the pressure and the scrutiny that comes on this job. We've seen it with Erik Ten Hag over the last 18 months. He's been criticised and scrutinised for stuff that's got nothing to do with football. He's been criticised and scrutinised for, certain suits, the way he talks, the way he walks, the way he looks, certain words that he uses when he's not talking in his native language. I mean, it's crazy stuff when it comes to that. And Graham Potter will be no different. One of the biggest takeaways when he was at Chelsea is that he got a new haircut and grew out a beard and all of that. And they were like, Graham Potter, he's wearing a turtleneck. He will get rinsed for that at United. They will kill him for that. I mean, they really will. And the moment he says something or says a certain phrase, they will absolutely just destroy him for it. And you have to ask that question to anyone coming in. Forget the tactics. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to dive into the snake pit that's also, by the way, got piranhas in it? Because they're all trying to bite you. They're all trying to rip your head off, because that's what they do. In the later years, as I said, with Sir Alex Ferguson, he took basically a sort of a bit of a backward step. He oversaw things. He was the godfather, but he didn't really get his hands dirty day to day when it came to tactics. Picked the team, maybe sort of consulted about an overall game plan, but biggest part of his job was managing the media and keeping the media and the players in line. So it's not even necessarily about just being a good coach. It's also about being capable to just manage all of that. And I suppose some people will say, well, he's an English manager, he's a British manager, so the British press will treat him more kindly. Perhaps they would to an extent, but when you see all of those journalists and you see the media, if they, like any whiff of blood, particularly with Manchester United, not so much with other managers, because remember, at Chelsea, Graham Potter was treated very nicely by the media for a long time because they don't really care about a manager going into Chelsea to fail. Chelsea's of shambles at the moment, but no one cares. Like, Pochettino's under pressure, but not to the extent that Ten Hag would have been in his first season if he was in Pochettino's position. No way. Absolutely no way, because they don't care. It doesn't get as many clicks, it doesn't get as many searches, doesn't get get as many views. They could care less. When it comes to United, if they know a story is there that the first manager under the INEOS regime at Manchester United at Old Trafford is failing, regardless if he's British or not, they could give a shit about that. They would literally just be, they'd steamroll him. And you could see towards the end, Chelsea, when he was there, Graham Potter, he was already cracking with that. And that's nowhere near the scrutiny that he would get at Manchester United. If he's doing well, last season was a good season for Manchester United, by the way. And Erik ten Hag still got scrutiny last season. We won a trophy, we got to a final. We qualified for the Champions League. In recent years, that's deemed as a good season for United. And he still got slandered, let alone if we didn't. So, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of protection, realistically, from the media. They might get a bit more of a welcome period, shall we say, than Erik ten Hag got. But at the same time, they will, if there's a story there, particularly, again, with the Man United press pool and just the wider media, we've seen it when it comes to United. We are treated differently. We just are. It doesn't matter who you are. We are treated just differently. Again, it's just how it works, unfortunately, with United. Finally, he was asked, Erik ten Hag, about the injuries. We do know that, obviously, Casemiro's back. Lisandro Martinez is back. They've been back in full training this week, but don't expect them to be available on Monday. He was asked if there were any fresh faces, people available for the game against Wigan, and Erik ten Hag said no. I think we'll have more or less the same squad that we had against Forest. When it comes to Casemiro and Martinez, I think the game that they were earmarked for, even several weeks ago, wasn't it, was that Spurs game. So they're hoping that they'll be available. Whether or not they'll start, I don't know. I was actually chatting to Flex on the phone earlier on today, and we were sort of saying about whether we think both of them will start or one of them will start against Spurs. I don't know. I think particularly Martinez, they might not take that risk. It's been so long. But by that point, it would have been several weeks in training, several weeks in first team full training. So it's a possibility, I suppose, and it's a big game. If it wasn't a game against, a top 4 rival or top 6 rival, whatever you want to call them, then maybe they wouldn't take that risk. But United and ten Hag, they need a big result against a big team, don't they? I mean, it's frustrating, isn't it, that the Villa result was sandwiched between two absolute horror show performances against West Ham and Forest, because when you look at how well Villa are doing this season, coming back from 2-0 down at home against a team that's, they second or third in the league, is a really strong result. So we need a big win, and maybe that's why he'll take that risk when it comes to Martinez and Casemiro for that game on the 14th. Would just be like, I've got to take the risk. I've got to play him, and we've got to get something out of that game, and we've got to send a bit of a message. So, but that's in several weeks' time. That's not this week. That's not the game. The game is Monday. Wigan versus Manchester United, FA Cup third round. Of course, we were in the final last season, so I guess we've got something to play for. The only cup competition we got left to play for this season, the only opportunity to win anything is the FA Cup. So there you go. If you haven't already, guys, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap for the remainder of the week? Well, tomorrow is Friday, as much as the press conference was today, which is surprising. Tomorrow, I'll be back live in the morning, 9 a.m. Transfer View. There's a lot going on with transfers at the moment. Not so much with incomings at United, but outgoings. We might tomorrow have a here we go regarding Jaden Sancho from Fabrizio Romano. Frankly, like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if we get one this evening. They're saying that they want Sancho at the training camp tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. So it's the perfect reason to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to subscribe. Click that notification bell, particularly in transfer season. You want the notifications on so you know them when we're live or when a new video is uploaded or anything like that. So that's the perfect thing to do. Anyway, guys, have a great Thursday. Have a great Thursday evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.